education, we're told it's the key to success, the foundation of a better life, the one thing every person needs to escape struggle. But what if that's a lie? What if the very system designed to teach us is actually built to control us? Today, Priyansh and I are going to break it all down: what education really is, who it truly serves, and whether any of us were ever given a choice. What is the purpose of education? Is it really about learning? Or is it something else entirely?
I mean, socially speaking, what is education all about? It's an institution in which you teach kids useful knowledge and attributes that they'll require for an adult life. So, education is essentially taking the young of the species and preparing them for life is all what life is all going to be about. For example, even in lions, there is the element of education where the mom teaches the kids how to hunt, how to survive, how to do particular things. So education in human society is just the institutionalized thing when it comes down to it. What is it? I'm not.
That makes sense. But human education is far more structured and rigid than anything we see in nature. A lion cub learns to hunt when it needs to, when it's useful. But human children are put through years of structured learning, much of which they'll never use. So is education actually about preparing people for life? Or is it about something else? Perhaps control, conformity, or even just keeping kids busy until they're old enough to be productive?
A large part of it is definitely keeping kids busy because again that just takes the some load off the parents and conformity for sure. Schools put in a lot of the structure, how they're structured. You sit in at a specific time, you work alongside a group, you have to be disciplined, you have to follow certain timelines. So even my own school teachers used to say that it is about inculcating discipline with children. On now, discipline could be something that helps people be better, but it is definitely also something that helps people comply with societal norms. It is what helps people or integrates within them things that will apply so that they're able to work alongside law. But it is also something which can be again used so that people become more and more malleable for the government, for institutions, for people in power. So there is definitely an element of that. I can definitely see that.
Exactly. Discipline itself is a tool. It can shape a person into someone capable and independent, or it can break them into someone obedient and easy to control. The question is, does education lean more toward empowerment or control? If it were purely about empowerment, wouldn't we see schools encouraging critical thinking, debate, and creativity far more than they do? Instead, most education systems prioritize memorization, obedience, and standardized testing, things that measure how well someone follows instructions, not how well they think for themselves.
True. Actually, very true. Even all the tests are not exactly about you figuring out a solution. It is about you memorizing a solution. They are not necessarily also about concepts themselves, but the fact that you're adhering to a timeline, the fact that you're giving an examination, and the way to go about scoring well in that examination is just by following the instructions of the teacher. You listen to the questions the teacher says is important. Not so the concepts don't necessarily matter. What matters is if you study in the way the teacher wants, in the way the syllabus is, right? So it's not necessarily about learning either. It is more so about following a specific path that has been laid out for you. So yeah, that is actually inculcating conformity within people, and whether or not that conformity is positive is a separate matter entirely, but it does stop children from critically thinking, because every time they do critically think, it is discouraged. So even though for that specific thing which is inculcating discipline and conformity, we don't know whether it is positive or whether it is negative, but we know for a fact that critical thinking developing is a positive thing, and that is not being done. So that means that there is some other motivation. So the motivation is not to develop critical thinking or overlooking it. So if someone's structure does not allow critical thinking but allows conformity, that I feel like leans more towards control than anything else.
Exactly. If education were purely about empowerment, then curiosity would be rewarded, not punished. But in most systems, questioning too much is seen as disruptive, and thinking outside the prescribed way is discouraged. That tells us that the primary goal isn't knowledge, it's predictability. A predictable worker, a predictable citizen, someone who follows the structure without challenging it. And when you think about it that way, school isn't just about preparing kids for adult life, it's about preparing them for a very specific kind of adult life, one where they fit neatly into the system rather than challenge or redefine it.
Yeah, and therefore the major conclusion out of this would be the fact that education itself is there to prepare you to become a specific kind of person, and that person who complies, who conforms, that person which is easily taken advantage of by institutions, that person who's easily taken advantages of by people who will make money at the end of the day. I mean, if I am a capitalist, if I am someone in power, then wouldn't I fund, do school funding in a way that programs which inculcate conformity are something which are shaped. I mean, the government and the companies can both shake hands on this, right? Because both at the end of the day want to control the population. Whether it is for the population's own good or not is not something for the population to decide. This is something people in power decide. This is something rich people decide. And the fact of the government is that perhaps the government officials change a lot, but there is also a lot of nepotism going on in the government. And remove the government for a second. What are the people who hold most resources? Because resources is equating to power, and these people are going to remain even if the government is not. And these are people in power, like people economically powerful, right? And these people can influence government through lobbying, through funding. So ultimately it's a downward stream of people in power, as in people who hold great sources of wealth. They are they are sending that wealth to the king, which is basically the government, in order to influence their decisions, which ultimately affects the population, which population is going to buy from the capitalist. Which
Exactly. It's a closed loop. The wealthy fund the system that produces workers who don't question why they're being exploited. The government enforces the rules that ensure compliance. And the people, shaped by this education system, feed back into the machine, becoming predictable consumers and predictable workers. The system doesn't need innovation from the masses, just enough productivity to keep itself running. And the best part? People defend it because the system isn't just external, it's internalized. People believe education is the key to success, not realizing that success is defined in a way that keeps them locked in this very structure.
Exactly, and the point is the people who end up becoming the most successful. So people who are ending up becoming not just people with good jobs, but rather people who gain influence and power. At the end of the day, they end up feeding into the loop because they want other people not to reach there. So it is basically climbing up a rope and then cutting it for everyone else trying to reach up.
Exactly. The ones who break out of the system don't dismantle it, they reinforce it. They recognize that the system benefits those at the top, so once they get there, they do everything in their power to keep others from reaching their level. They buy influence, they manipulate policy, they shape culture. They don't want competition. They want control. And so the system doesn't just persist, it strengthens.
It's not even that it is strengthening, it is also that the system is going to towards the singularity point. Think about it. If less and less, if the people who get in power are the people who are reinforcing this particular structure so that the buyer is strong and a lot, while the people don't necessarily get to their level, wouldn't that mean less and less people hold power at the end of it? Less and less people, it like concentrates, it becomes nepotism, and then ultimately wouldn't it just devolve into a monarchy once again? So monarchy, king,
Yes,
cyclical.
it's a slow regression back to monarchy, just with a different aesthetic. Instead of kings and queens, we have corporate dynasties, billionaire families, and political elites passing power down generation after generation. The illusion of meritocracy keeps people chasing a dream that statistically isn't possible for most. And as wealth and power concentrate, the cycle accelerates. Fewer decision makers, more centralized control, and eventually, a point where the average person has no agency at all.
If that is the case, that means we're going back to the time of monarchy in just a different form or fashion. And if that logic follows, then that monarchy will end up giving rise to a newer form of industrial revolution, and capitalists will emerge again. And I guess the real cycle isn't even the people in power reinforcing this cycle. The real cycle is monarchy to capitalism, to monarchy to capitalism. So there is a circle which enforces the outer circle. So a circle within a circle is so kind of a spiral sort of situation we're having. That is the real circle.
Yes, exactly. The cycle of monarchy and capitalism isn't just a loop, it's a spiral, continuously evolving but always repeating itself in new forms. Monarchy centralizes power until it collapses under its own weight, giving rise to capitalism, where economic elites slowly replace the old monarchs. Over time, capitalism concentrates wealth and influence so much that it naturally reverts back to a de facto monarchy. And then, when the conditions break down again, revolution or industrial leaps reset the cycle. The illusion of progress keeps people from realizing they're trapped in a recurring pattern, thinking each era is uniquely different when it's just another turn of the spiral.
Yeah, so at the end of the day, education is but a mere gear in the larger circle of keeping the powerful more powerful, which itself is a gear in the system of monarchy to capitalism to monarchy again. Concentration of power, system of concentration of power, I guess. Makes sense actually. More I think about it.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Education is just one of the many tools used to reinforce the system, keeping people in place, while the cycle of power continues. It's not designed to liberate, it's designed to integrate, ensuring that most people never question the larger structure they're trapped in. And because each stage of the cycle presents itself as progress, people don't even realize they're just being moved from one form of control to another.
Yeah, and so if you don't get educated, you're fucked because you have no way out of your poverty. And if you do get educated, it's just feeding into the narrative, so you're fucked either way. And even if you do come out of it and somehow, unlikely statistically, but you become successful, then again you're feeding into a system. So you're fucked all three ways. Great. No way out of it.
At the end of the day, education isn't about knowledge, it's about control. It's a system designed to keep you in line. to shape you into exactly what those in power need you to be. Whether you resist or comply, the cycle continues and the gears keep turning. But maybe, just maybe, if you see the pattern, you can break free. And as always, patterns are everywhere.